a special feeling in Oldsmobile. There is a special feeling in Oldsmobile. More than the luxury ride, it's a feeling of pride that you feel inside.
A little update before we start the video. On the 66 Toronado, found out that this 455 has a blown head gasket and potentially a cracked head on the driver's side. Coolant is leaking down there, and it's pushing coolant into the exhaust and it's burning. It looked like we smoked about 100 reefers in here when we started it up. Another reason is we can tell, at least, is the temp gauge is broken. This radiator was originally broken as well, which probably would have caused the engine to overheat and caused the head gasket to blow. And when we try to bleed the system, just air was just being pushed into the radiator and into our overflow, which couldn't catch it all. So yeah, there's that. I won't be able to race this on Sunday for Norwalk like I wanted, but potentially going to be changing the heads to B heads, and we're going to replace the head gasket as long as nothing else is wrong with this engine. So I should have it out for the Woodward Dream Cruise is the next, I guess, goal. So yeah, just want to give a little update on that. But today we're going to be focusing on my 1988 Toronado. I have neglected this car. I've turned it into a table, pretty much. I wanted to do a little video on the Teves system, specifically the Teves Mark II. I've replaced many of these systems, and forgive me for the fans because it's extremely hot in here. It's probably close to almost 100 degrees outside. This is the hottest Michigan's ever gotten. So forgive me if wind is in the background. But I wanted to explain these systems. So this is a Teves Mark II. This system was produced by the company Teves. And this is a remanufactured unit by, I believe it's ATE. Yeah, it says right there on the side. ATE. So this system has had all new everything on this side of the assembly. It's a self-enclosed unit, so this has an ABS pump and everything inside of it with the reservoir on top, and then a brake booster as well, which is comprised of the accumulator pump and the accumulator itself, which is that black ball on top. It seems like this accumulator is good, but I'm going to replace this whole right side assembly at once just to make sure. I'm going to take this accumulator off because usually once the pumps go bad, the accumulator ball is, well, it's next in line to fail because the pumps kill them. What I got here is another accumulator pump that I picked up off a Riata that only had about 47,000 miles. Hit crazy. They junked it. The car was pretty much torn apart by the junkyard. They skewered it with forklifts and everything like that. But I was able to pull this off of it. This is a remanufactured accumulator. So they put this stamping on it, shows remanufactured. And then the pump itself is in good condition. I believe it's an original. This is from a 88 Riata. Yeah, that's what it was, a Riata, 88 Riata. So it will fit exactly to this because they had two different types of accumulators, at least for bolting up, which include this banjo bolt on top, and while other ones have a more direct fitting on top. So luckily this one came with that banjo bolt. So this one will be able to just plug right in with no problem. And you got this back hose here, which we will probably pull off in case, because I don't believe the hose on this one's bad. So I'm going to start with that. First, we're going to depressurize the system Also, I picked up a cover for the engine because the other one was burnt from the EGR. I believe they replaced it. I'll have to check more, but I believe they replaced the gasket. So we're going to have to depressurize the system. To do that, we have to first undo the battery. You just take off the negative side, so I'm going to do that right now. There we go. So I unhooked the negative side of the battery. Now we have to depressurize the system, now that there's no power to go through it and to recharge the system or activate the accumulator pump when you press down the brake pedal. So the reason why we want to depressurize this before we remove this banjo line is because this system, specifically the accumulator ball, is pressurized to 2600 psi. That's a lot of pressure, and you don't want brake fluid squirting at you at that high of pressure. And if for whatever reason it was to come off, it would be like a bullet, pretty much. It'd be or at least a cannon or something. It wouldn't be good. One other thing I have to do is take off this brace. I forgot on the FE3 cars, if you do have one of these, or a 1990 Toronado, you have to pull off this brace in order to get this out. Or at least it makes it a little bit easier to access. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that off, and then we'll pressurize the system next. Alright, it is now removed. All it takes is 4 bolts. It's pretty easy. I have a new strut bar that I'm going to be putting on. It's a lot cleaner because this one's been just sitting. So now you see we have way more room in order to get at this thing. See the line? You have one line coming down here, line that comes up from up here. It comes off of the back of the reservoir, and we got the connector bolt, and then the connector up front here and down here for that. And this vacuum lines are all this vacuum lining is a mess on this car. They did such a poor and shoddy job, whoever did this before me. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So next we'll depressurize the system. I'm gonna unplug these two here. Got little safety tabs. I'm gonna set these up here just not to lose them. Okay, cool. They didn't break. That's actually really hard to do, or really easy, I should say, is to break these because they're so old and brittle, and they're right next to the exhaust manifold, so they get really hot over time, and heating and cooling for plastic isn't good. So got those both off. So now we can depressurize it, because the next we need to do is unplug this, then we need to take this off, and then we'll remove that last hose underneath there, because we need to clip it up into this one, or else we'll lose a whole bunch of brake fluid, and air will get into the system and stuff like that. Because luckily, when you do this, it's a self-bleeding system, so all air will be pushed out through the reservoir cap. Really cool. So we're gonna do that now. What we do is you come in here, and what we need to do is we need to press the brake pedal 40 times. 9, I think that's 10 there. I like to do it about 45 or 50 until the job's done. So I'm going to do this until I get done. This is a long process, and trust me, your foot gets tired at the end. Okay, I just pressed it 50 times here just to make sure. So the system should be depressurized now. And hopefully his bolt should be an 11. It might be bigger. Yeah, I believe it's a 15 on these banjo bolts. Let's see here. Let's see here, 15. That should do it. I want to make sure I get these sizes right. Yep, 15, I was right. Now I just need to crack it open. And we leave this bolt on down here because this gives us leverage to pull this off. You see it's leaking a little bit of brake fluid. If we've done this correctly, it shouldn't shoot out a ton, which it would have by now. So, undo this banjo bolt. Lift this up and put it on top of the accumulator so no brake fluid comes out. It's a pretty messy job, so I recommend wearing gloves. You can see I already got some brake fluid on my hands. So next we need to do is, if I can stop blocking my head with the light, is take off this bolt here, and we need to first loosen that just a tiny bit so it'll be ready to be we'll be able to put the next unit on. I found sort of a good setup. It's the best I could do, unfortunately. Unfortunately, this tower blocks most of it. But you can see the accumulator and everything. So I'm going to go ahead, start pulling it apart. Let's see here. So on this accumulator, see that little pin right there? Little pin right there pointing. You got to take that off in order to take the hose off and hopefully not break the brittle plastic. Okay, finally set. So now I can start taking off the bolt, which I believe is 11 millimeters. Yeah. There we go. That's good. There we go. Make sure it's secure. Okay. Moves around a little bit still. Banjo bolt back in. There's that. Here's the final product. Looks really good, huh? A couple things I gotta do. Still gotta get some air out of the system. Gotta go through all 4 brakes because the brake and ABS light are still popping up. But I know the accumulator and everything is good to go now, at least. Pedal's actually firm now, or I should say, actually goes down now instead of being a brick. So I'm happy with that. So thank you for watching, and hope you guys learned something from this. Now you know how to change the accumulator and the accumulator pump on a Teves Mark II brake system.